Welcome to Lead Your Life, the podcast for people who are seeking harmony in business and in life. My name is Debbie Heiser, and I'm an inner mastery and business mindset coach and the chief igniter here at the Lit Up Life. I feel an urgency to help people let go of past messaging so that they can make a lot of money doing what they love without sacrificing what they value most. Welcome. We're glad you're here.
Straight from the corners of my mind is where I find my sanity. It's a place, another land.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser. I am Debbie Heiser. I help entrepreneurs make a lot of money doing what they love to do without sacrificing what's important to them. And I'm really excited today to have Kelly Roach on. Kelly and I actually just met. Usually most of my listeners hear me say, oh, here's how Kelly and I met, blah, blah, blah. But a good friend of mine, Aaron Marcus, introduced me to Kelly's work, and I've been following Kelly for a while. And we somehow got hooked up and decided to do this podcast. And I'm super excited because Kelly does similar work to me and really focuses on processes. And I know like Six Sigma is a big thing in your business. And so, Kelly, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself because I think you'll do a much better job of that than I would. And then we're just going to have a conversation about how you lead your lit up life, how you've built your businesses, and continue to have a lit up life. So I'm going to let you take it away.
Okay, great. Well, I'm so happy to be here. And yes, I'm Kelly Roach, and wife and mom, person of faith first, business empire builder second. And really, my focus of my business building journey has been helping entrepreneurs build 6, 7, and 8-figure companies online, but really doing it in a sustainable and profitable way that allows them to build a business and a life that they love. And if I can bring people back to putting their faith and their marriage and their families first, that's really my objective and my goal. So, I started in the Fortune 500 world. I know you came from corporate as well. I was promoted 7 times in 8 years, started my first company in 2012. And fast forward today, I have a portfolio of 6 companies, 5 of them I own myself, and 1 of them I have a partner in. But really, my life is just my work, and my life is dedicated to helping people make their dreams come true. That's my goal.
Isn't that so fun? It's funny that you say that because when I first started my career, I sold yellow pages, and my manager at the time said, you don't sell yellow pages, you sell hopes, wishes, and dreams. And I feel like I've come full circle and continue to do
Yes,
it a different
it's
way.
so
So,
true. It's
yeah.
so true.
So Kelly, tell us a little bit about, you're in corporate America. Tell us a little bit about what prompted you to start your own businesses. And from what I read, and you tell me, it sounds like you kind of did a little, I call it the ramp down and ramp up, right? Where it wasn't just this like, I'm going to cut it off and go start
Yeah.
a new business, which I tend to recommend to my clients. And so tell us a little bit about how that started and what prompted you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, my goal was not to be an entrepreneur. It was never a dream of mine, to be perfectly honest. I wanted to be a corporate executive. That was my goal, and that's what I did. And I loved it. I learned sales, recruiting, leadership, management. I fell in love with business. Everything that I do today, I can attribute to the corporate career that I had. So I'm extremely grateful and thankful for that time and for the mentor that I had that led me through those really significant and consequential years of my life for sure. And, I got to a point where, I had gotten a lot of promotions. I was managing a very large team, lots of locations, and I just didn't feel like I was using my skill and talent in a way that was actually making a meaningful impact in the world. Like
Yeah.
I was making a lot of money. I was getting the promotions. I had a great team. I had a great boss, but it was just my soul was not feeling
Yeah.
fulfilled in what I was doing. And, I was given a lot of autonomy to be very entrepreneurial in my role because of the results that I had gotten. But I definitely maxed that out. Like I took it as far as you could take it working in someone else's company. And so I was honest. I disclosed to my leadership team, like, hey, this is something I really feel like I need to do. I'm going to start this at night and on the weekend. And I said, listen, if you want to fire me, like I do understand, like obviously. And they said, hey, if you keep your results where they are and your team, continues to perform at that level, then do your thing, you know? And so I stayed in my job for more than 5 years while I built my business, and I built
What
it
a
on.
blessing that they approached you that way.
I
Yeah.
never thought they would. I
Yeah.
never thought they would. And really the only reason they did was because the results that we had, we were the best performing team in the company. If I was like someone that was like, struggling to get by, they would have been like that day. They would,
Yeah.
but it got to a point where I felt like the calling was so strong that I had to be willing to risk it. But at the same time, I'm a very risk adverse person. I wanted to keep the job because I wanted to not go into this new part of my life in financial scarcity, not knowing how I was going to, pay the bills. I wanted to be able to invest in really building my business.
Right.
And so that's why I kept my job. And, it's so funny. And you shared that this is how you typically recommend for people. And I do the same. I do not recommend that you burn all the boats. I
Right.
do not recommend that you walk in and quit in a rage of, what do they call it? What's from the movie? Um,
I'm not sure which movie.
yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah.
I definitely recommend that you have a ramp. And, because what I see, and I've been coaching entrepreneurs since 2012 now in the online space, is so many people don't understand that, if you look statistically, it takes about 2 years to get a business to a point where you can start paying yourself. But what that's not accounting for is all the time and money and energy that it takes just to start acquiring customers and pay the bills and be able to invest in the right things. So you're either A, going into a ton of debt, or B, burning through all of your savings. Neither one of those things are a good thing, right? So I definitely say the slow and steady wins the race. And I love big and fast, but you have to be careful, in that application, I think.
Yeah, I almost look at it as stewardship, right? Like good
Yeah,
stewardship of the
yeah,
resources that you have.
for
And
sure.
there's a fine line, right? Because I've
Yeah,
seen people use that as an excuse too,
exactly.
in fear. And so I always
Yeah.
think there's an art and a
Yes,
science to
I
this.
agree. I agree with
Yeah.
that completely. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, like, you have these 6 companies. What are these 6 companies all about? I know
Yeah.
it's a thread, but yeah.
Yes, yeah, there definitely is. So, like, just going back to the beginning, so I started my first company in 2012. I still have that business today. It's called the Business Advisory. It was formerly Kelly Roach Coaching, but now I have leaders and a team of advisors and all of that. So, changed the name to be more reflective of, who the business is today. But, so I started that. I built that to 7 figures while I still had my job. And then when I became a full-time entrepreneur, I very quickly took that business to 8 figures. And I had to make a decision because I wanted to take the business to 9 figures. And uh, the work that we do in the business advisory is extremely custom. It's extremely hands-on. It is very detailed, very nuanced. And I just had to make a judgment call that if I kept trying to grow the business big and fast and scale it in alignment with how fast and big and the things that I like to do because I'm a builder,
Yeah.
it would have impacted the customer experience and the customer results. And for me, that's the most important part of business is the results that people get and the experience of the customer and all of those things. So I started kind of looking at the other gaps that were overlapping to our natural and organic growth path. And I really kind of scanned the landscape for the places.
Those things happen. I have a
Sorry,
love-hate
we
relationship with
might need a little
technology.
edit. I'm so sorry. And that just
That's
came from my
okay.
other
No
computer too.
worries.
Um, so I started scanning the landscape and just looking for those overlaps where one, it was a gap that we could fill in a meaningful way. Two, I did not see a solution in the market that I would be comfortable putting my name behind referring my customers to. And
Mhm.
three, that I had a desire to commit to fulfilling long term. And so from that, I built a marketing agency. I have a virtual business school. I have a networking company. I was initially an investor in it and then I acquired it. So all of the businesses, they support one another. It's like an
Right.
ecosystem, right? Our customer is the entrepreneur, right? And we serve the entrepreneur in a multitude of different ways. I don't recommend it, by the way. I did it because I did not want to deteriorate the customer experience and results in my core company. I knew it was going to be extremely challenging and I knew it would slow us down, and it did. But I felt like in integrity, it was the right decision to make. And
Yeah.
it was, and it was. But I want to be clear because people might see someone like me and say, oh, see, she has 6 companies. I don't need to focus. No, you do need to focus. I did not start building these other companies until after I was ready to slow the growth down. And that's what I want to remind people of. So if you want to grow faster, do not create competing focuses, because that will slow you down and it will make it harder. And the thing, honestly, that was so successful for us that got us to 8 figures was that really tight, really clear focus. Now, thankfully, I've had over 10 years of building my brand, building my ecosystem, creating trust in the market. So I'm in a position that I can more easily build multiple companies, but I always like to unpack that a little bit for people because they see that and you could get the wrong impression. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so you've built these companies, and I love too that they support, I was just at a chamber networking last night and had met an accountant and a tax strategist and all these people. And I'm like, I really want to know what you do, because similar to you, I have clients that need some of those services and I want to understand who they are. But
Yeah,
sometimes it's a little nerve-wracking recommending people because you're not 100% certain if you're not using them. So I
yeah,
love how you've built this to
yeah,
support the core business and what feels like your spiritual DNA of
yeah,
helping entrepreneurs.
yeah.
And it supports what you do in that core company. So the focus is still there, but it's almost like just these other wheels to the wagon. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what happened is, we started referring a lot of people out. And
Mm.
as your business grows and grows and you're referring more people and then they're maxing out this person and they're maxing out that person, you don't have as much quality control even now over what you're associating your name with when you're making referrals. And that became problematic. So I was like, okay, I can't be referring my customers to anyone that is not going to give exceptional, predictable quality service in every level. So that was another thing that came into play for us as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, Kelly, we're going to take a quick break, and then I want to come back and really delve into this idea of how did you have a full-time job? And I know eventually that ramped down, but and pretty demanding, because if it was like mine, the expectation was 40 hours a week, but it was always a little more than that, right? Get the job done. But and had that, and then built these businesses. And you talked about your role of a wife, a mother, and a faith-based person as the number one role. So I want to dig into how you've kind of created balance and harmony in that approach. So we'll be right back, folks. Let's talk about something every entrepreneur faces: selling. It's one of the biggest topics I hear from my community and clients. How can I sell without feeling the ick? I get it. And that's exactly why I created an ebook that guides you through the same script I use to grow my business year after year by leading sales conversations with heart and soul. If you want a selling approach that feels right, head over to thelituplife.com/ebook and grab your copy today. Now, let's get back to today's episode. Okay, folks, we are back and I'm really excited. Kelly is going to dig in, share with us a little bit about, you did some ramp down, but you had this full-time job. You built the business. Then once you built the business, you built other businesses around it to support it, all the while being a wife, a mother, and a faith-based person. Tell us how you created harmony in that and balance,
Yeah.
because that's so
Yeah.
important.
Well, I will tell you, the biggest thing that I had a lot of stress and anxiety about when I
Mhm.
started my business was that I was seeing the way that entrepreneurs were working and kind of the speed and pace in the entrepreneurial market. And I really just kept thinking to myself, like, I don't know how I'm ever going to get this business to be successful. I'm working like 2 hours a day or 3 hours a day, like on my lunch break and a little bit before work. And then after I would get Madison down, to bed for the night and stuff like that. And I remember this turning point moment in my life happened where so I signed up for my first coaching program before I had my first client. Great decision, because I was like, I don't want to, I didn't have time to waste. I was like, I don't have time to waste. I need to learn from someone who has built a coaching company before. So
Right.
signed up for that, did that. And the first year I was kind of like, I was slow, I was just learning the online world and I was just getting going. So I signed up for a second year. And by the second year, my business starts just like explosive growth. And in my second year in the program, there were a lot of the same people that were in the program my first year in the program, but they were full-time entrepreneurs. And all of a sudden, I had this like moment of clarity where in that second year, I got on one of the coaching calls, and a lot of the same people that I had been with for now, this is the second year, they're in the same place, asking the same questions, not taking action, not getting results, stuck in the same place. And here my business is exploding. Now I'm only working on my lunch break and a little bit before work, a little bit afterwards. And I finally realized, and this is one of the most important distinctions of my life, that my business wasn't going to succeed based on how many hours I put into it. It was going to succeed based on what I did in the hours.
Yeah.
And I wish every entrepreneur could learn that today, because I see entrepreneurs burning themselves out 80 hours a week in avoidance of doing the things that they really need to do because they have whatever filters or they have whatever fears or whatever, and they could be working less than half of those hours if they just did the things that they actually needed to do. So you asked about the time thing. The greatest gift I ever got in entrepreneurship was recognizing that it didn't matter if I only had 2 hours a day. If I spent those 2 hours focused on doing sales and marketing and acquiring customers, I was going to make more progress in my business that day or that week than someone who is spending 80 hours a week. So that one distinction like completely changed everything for me. And the other thing is, I say this all the time, like you see people that have, a level of success and you're like, oh, well, they had this and they had that. I retired my husband. So I was like a year into the business, a year and a half, and I find out I'm pregnant with Madison. And it was right at the exact moment when my business is like taking off. And I'm like, okay, very cool. So we're doing this now. We're doing this in the mix. So I have the job, I have the business, now I'm pregnant. And I'm like, all right, we're rolling with it, right? But my husband and I, we've been together for 18 years. We had already decided that we were not going to be putting our children in daycare. We were not going to have babysitters. We were going to raise our kids ourselves. And so I knew I wanted to do my business long term for my life. So he was in a job he didn't like anyway, retired him, and had him home full time. That really made all the difference in the world for us, because now we have flexibility. Now we have a low stress home environment. Now we have that availability. And that played a major role. And people might be sitting here saying, well, I can't do that. No, you pay the price in life for whatever you want to do. I paid the price for that. That wasn't something that came to me that was just like an easy decision.
Right. Right.
That was a hard decision with a big price tag that him and I made together because we knew it was the right thing for our family. But that absolutely has impacted the quality of our life, Madison's development, our marriage. I mean, I think so. Again, it's like decide what you want in life and then decide whether or not you're willing to pay the price tag for what you want in life, right?
Right. Right. And
Um,
Kelly, you bring up a really important component too, that like one of the things I focus on with entrepreneurs too is what's your environment look like?
yeah,
And if you're in a place where it's not supportive of what you
yep,
feel like your calling is, that
yep,
needs to shift. And sometimes
yep,
those are hard choices and sometimes they're just awarenesses, but
yep,
that is one thing. And the people in your life supporting you is important too, but there are other factors that, the universal law of sacrifice, sometimes we have to let go of something to move
yep.
forward. And it's not always relationships, but sometimes it's a habit that we have or something that we do that gets in our way. And so it's really important that we build a supportive environment. I don't know about you, but I know that like after I have an intensive with people, or if I have a weekend intensive with a group of people, I need a day or two, not so much from an energetic perspective because it energizes me, but in order to let myself process and go through that. And I have to build that environment. I just came off of 2 months of almost back to back to back travel, and I know I control that. And I was even going, wait a minute, like how do I always end up in the shoulder seasons? Well, it's because I
Yeah,
love where I live in the summer and I ski in the winter. So
yeah,
what's the price tag, right? And so
yeah.
then making those choices. And if you can really understand what you want, then it becomes easier to make that decision of whether or not you want to pay the price tag.
That's exactly right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. And I do think women in particular don't they don't ask for enough help, they don't pay for enough help, and they don't use the help that they already have. That
So
could be
true.
the whole podcast, like right there,
Right.
because you have to be a visionary leader in your own life. And you have to be able to see what you want, go for what you want, and arrange the chessboard to make it match. And so, you know, for me to be able to prioritize all my time, all my energy on either I'm working or I'm focused on my family so that my marriage doesn't suffer, so that my relationship with my daughter doesn't suffer. That means if it's not one of those two things, I'm not doing it. And that would include cooking, cleaning, running errands, doing laundry, doing dry cleaning, doing anything other than I'm providing for my family and I'm focusing on the two most important people where I'm completely irreplaceable, my husband and my daughter, that's it. And I think having clarity on that is really, really important, because I think a lot of women are still like doing it all and being it all in 100 different ways, and it doesn't work. It's not sustainable, right?
Yeah. And Kelly, I love that you're talking about that too, because you know, one of the things, it's also a ramp up, meaning if right now you're in a position, if you're listening to this and you're in a position where you're like, well, I can't hire a chef to come in, I can't hire this, it's all that I can't. But you know, like one of the things, I have a house cleaner and she is part of my team and she knows she's a part of my team and she feels really grateful to be a part of the team, right? Because she frees up some of my time to be able to do what I do best. Then, you know, if somebody says, hey, I can't afford that, well, just try it, because I'm here to tell you, you will do whatever it takes to pay that person for the month.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Once you experience that, you'll be like, I'll eat ramen, but I'm not losing
exactly.
the cleaning lady.
Exactly.
Like and that's the thing. And you know, but the other thing is when you buy back your time, you can then do more of the activities that make you money. And I think that's the part of the equation that people miss so often, is like, you're not just spending money, you're buying back your time. And when you buy back your time, you can go out and use it in other more meaningful ways that actually put money back in your pocket. So it's an investment. It's not an
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would say too, just some hacks that, you know, I've recommended to other people too, is if you want to have somebody cook your meals, but you feel like right now that's not something you're willing to pay the price tag. There are plenty of things out there in the store that have 2 steaks and some broccoli and whatever, and it's all ready to go. All you have to do is set it in the, you know, you can use Chat GPT to say, create a 5-day meal plan with whatever, right? So there are things out there that you can do to buy back some time, but it is an investment. And sometimes it's about faith in the fact that invest that so that you free up the time where then you're out making more money than what you're paying for that, right? And I think it's so counterintuitive to
yeah,
what we're taught.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So we could have probably a 3-hour
Yes. I would.
podcast to go into all of the things. And, you know, because we just touched on some of the things about even what we're taught as women and, you know, asking for what we want. I always go back to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It's depicted, here's a girl that says what she wants, and she's depicted as a snot and a brat, and she blows up into this big blueberry, right? So there's so many just subliminal things, but you know, like all good things, this podcast comes to an end, but we might have to get back on and have some additional conversation. But I want to kind of close up. If you could give 3 pieces of advice, like you've already given some great ones in here, but 3 pieces of advice to entrepreneurs to help them move the needle, whether that be financially or with them having a mindset around time, any of those things, what would be those 3 things?
Yeah. Well, I would say the first thing is that most business problems can be solved by spending the first hour of your workday doing money-making activities.
Yeah.
That would be the first thing. The second thing would be that the team is behind the dream. No one can do it alone. It doesn't matter how many hours you attempt to work in a day, it'll never be enough. And so the sooner that you start looking at how you're going to get to your goals and how you're going to achieve your dreams through the lens of who, not how, and what is the dream team I need to assemble to make it happen, now you're putting yourself in a position to realistically, you know, step into that. And then the third one is every day is a new opportunity, right? And I think for so many people, you get caught in the story of like, what happened this year? What happened last month? This happened, so I can't do this, right? Every day is a new opportunity. And if you wake up in the morning and you're still carrying the baggage from yesterday, then you can't be as productive and as powerful as you could be today. So treating every day like a clean slate, taking the learnings from yesterday, leaving the things behind that no longer belong, that is how you are going to capitalize on using your gifts in the most meaningful way.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Kelly. Thank you so much for that. And so
For
my
sure.
final two questions that I ask everyone is, if you could recommend a book, what book would you say has been really impactful in your life?
Well, just going with the theme of the conversation today, I mean, there's so many because I read almost a book a week, but I would say going with the theme of our conversation today, who, not how, because that is very, very supplemental to, the conversation that we're having here.
Perfect. Well, thank you. And then if we were to go on to whatever platform you listen to music on, what would be your most played song?
Probably No Destination by my husband on Spotify,
Nice.
Billy Roach, because I use that at the beginning of my Kairos sessions every week. So I love his music and he
Nice.
inspires
Yeah,
me
thank
every day.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so head out to Spotify and look that up, folks. So, and Kelly, if someone wanted to learn more about you, potentially look at working with you, where would you send them? And we'll put that in the show
Ah,
notes.
I mean, I would definitely just start with the podcast. It's free. Most of the episodes are like 20 minutes. You come in, you get inspired, you get some action to take right away, you leave better. That's a great place to start. And then, obviously, if you want to go down the rabbit hole, all things Kelly Roach, you can find me on social, send me a message, but start with the Kelly Roach Show. And I think that'll give you immediate value that you can take action on.
Fantastic. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for your inspiration and just sharing with us a little bit about your life. And with that, folks, it's a wrap. Have a fantastic week, and we'll see you next week. That's a wrap for this conversation. I'm so glad you've joined us. Remember to subscribe to the podcast so you can catch all of our future episodes, and visit us at thelituplife.com for details on how you can become part of the Lit Up Life community. A quick shout out to my friend Jackie Wilson and her friends, the creators of our amazing theme music. Thanks so much for allowing us to share this perfect song with our listeners. Looking forward to having you listen in to our next episode.